We were talking, Marcus, about this constant criticism about the vice president not being able, about the vice president being in office for these last, he's already upset about it. The vice president being in office for all these years and not being able to make the change was the allegation from J.D. Vance. You said to me, I've been to high school civics class. Why did you say that?
Because if anybody took high school civics class, they'd know what the vice president can do and what the vice president can do. I want to make a quick point. Neither candidate on that stage talked about what executive action they're going to take on day one to do what they want, nor were they asked, because they know that they can't. That's not how the vice presidency works. You don't get to do what you want. You do what the president delegates you to do.
Marcus was that smug kid that would get mad at people for being so clueless about the simplest things. But when it comes to the political talking point about the powers of the vice president, Trump and J.D. Vance aren't necessarily clueless. They're just trying to find a political angle to attack from.
And remember that as border czar, Kamala Harris has allowed a literal invasion of this country, more than 10 million illegal aliens, and she's refused to deport the people who are already here. So that makes about 25 million illegal aliens that are in this country right now. Now, our brave Border Patrol officers, they plead, they beg for her support. I was down there at the southern border and I saw it. Giant sections of President Trump's border wall sit right there, rusting, waiting to be installed, but she refuses to do her job. And you think it's bad now? If we give Kamala Harris a promotion and make her the president of the United States, the southern border is going to look like Walmart on Black Friday, ladies and gentlemen.
Make sure you don't miss the imagery of rabid and sometimes violent shoppers on Black Friday being attributed to the people at the border. If you pay attention, you can see that one of the main elements of the discussions about immigration is to portray it as chaotic as possible. Got to keep the motivation of fear as the prominent factor in supporting them. It's probably why calling her the border czar is part of their communication strategy, which to me never really felt like it made much impact. But still, networks fact-checked them on that too.
J.D. Vance, Republican from Ohio, said, Vice President Harris became the appointed border czar. This could be a semantic issue for some people. We rate it, the CBS News confirmed team, as false, and here is why. That was never Kamala Harris's title. That was never her designated role. Immigration policy flowed through the president and the Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas. What Kamala Harris was appointed to do or asked to do was look at the root causes of immigration in the so-called Northern Triangle countries, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala. That's why we rate that as false.
In case it wasn't clear that the border czar narrative is in the standard talking points to go after the vice president, Marjorie Taylor Greene will make sure that you know.
She can fake it for the photo ops, but we know that Kamala Harris wholeheartedly supports the chaos at our border, the chaos in our streets, and the chaos in the families who have been victims of her open border policies. Border czar Harris outlandishly compared ICE to KKK and radically called for the ICE to be abolished. Kamala Harris is not only the border czar, she is also the czar of chaos. And her policies have destroyed Americans. Since being appointed by border czar by President Joe Biden, Kamala Harris has undoubtedly been a complete failure in her job and has destroyed our country by releasing a record-setting levels of criminals, rapists, and terrorists into our communities. Border czar Kamala Harris said, "Do not come," yet proudly welcomed 11.5 million illegals from over 160 countries, including over 2 million known gotaways who completely evaded U.S. authorities. She stood by and allowed these people to come in and idly watched our children and women being raped by illegal alien criminals. Under her watch as border czar, this has happened.
The thing is, I actually get why they're focused on making this issue as closely tied to Harris as possible. They tried going with insane amounts of misogyny and racism when she first took on the nomination, and that didn't work. So the border was what they have left. But even with that issue, isn't it telling that bigoted beliefs and proposals are still the standard? They forget that there are more people behind this strategy of using their suffering to paint their political enemies as evil.
As I walked in here, all I heard was what I hear in committee. Constant criminalizing of immigrant communities. When the majority cannot pass bills, what do? They introduce blatantly political resolutions that consistently target powerful women of color. They are willing to vilify and misrepresent the sitting vice president of the United States for her diplomatic work to address the root cause of migration from Central America. If my Republican colleagues actually cared about immigration or border security, they would address the conditions that drive people to the southern border. They would pass spending bills that invest in foreign humanitarian assistance and international development programs, and they would participate in cooperative efforts to realize a world where people can build their life they want back at home. But they've done none of that. They continue to shelve their mass deportation BS. And I'm so tired of it. Let's get to solutions. We should be talking about appropriations. We should be talking about how we make sure that things are working for the American people instead of criminalizing people that are helping us boost our economy.